What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be taking a look at the entry list for the 2024 South Point 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start to talk about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This, of course, be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain's coming off of having not a great performance at the Charlotte Roval, but he's been really good on the mile and a half so far in 2024, and of course is a former winner at Las Vegas Motor Speedway back in 2022. He's going to have a good chance and opportunity to win if Trackhouse can bring that same pace and speed they had at Kansas, which of course they won the most recent mile and a half race at Kansas Speedway. So I think he'll have a decent chance and opportunity for the win this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 2 car for Team Penske? This will once again be driven by Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric, unfortunately, was eliminated from the playoffs after crossing the line in 4th place at the Charlotte Roval. And he's been okay at the mile and a half this year, but hasn't been the greatest. He's looking for a good run this weekend, continue a great end of the year, and get momentum up for 2025. He'll look to have a really solid and strong performance for sure this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 3 car for Richard Childress Racing? This will once again be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon's had not the greatest year so far in 2024, and there's a lot of rumors there's Spygate going on between RCR and Joie Gibbs Racing currently at the moment. He's looking for a really strong run to kind of deter that stuff going on at the moment. Is looking for a good run, but I'm not sure if the 3 team will bring that same pace and speed they've had at times in recent weeks. Up next, how about the 4 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This will once again be driven by Josh Berry. Josh Berry's coming off of having some not great performances as of recently, but if there's a track they could definitely turn it around, it is Las Vegas. SHR showed some really solid speed earlier this year, but unfortunately Josh Berry wasn't one of those drivers. He looks to have a really solid and a really strong run and looks to end the year off on a really strong note before Stewart-Haas Racing officially closes at the end of the year and season. Up next, how about the 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's coming off and picking up his 6th win of the 2024 season this past weekend at the Charlotte Roval. And he is the defending winner at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. In fact, has won the last 2 consecutive races and won the South Point 400 in 2023. He's going to have a really good chance and opportunity to go back-to-back and get a 7th win of the season. I expect him to be a major threat and contender for the win this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about this 6 car for RFK Racing? This will once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad's honestly coming off of having a not great performance at the Charlotte Roval after unfortunately getting turned in the middle portion of the event. Brad has been pretty good at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. In the fall race, he had one of the strongest cars in the event and was okay in the spring race earlier this year. I do think Keselowski will have some solid pace and speed. I feel like the mile and a half program for RFK has been solid so far throughout the year, and I could see Brad having a decent and maybe a strong performance this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 7 car for Spire Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Justin Haley. Justin Haley's first couple races in the 7 car have been a little bit mediocre. If there's a track, though, that we could see the 7 car run well, it is Las Vegas. Earlier in the year, Corey LaJoie, who drove this car, ran up front and was contending for the lead at one point. And if they can be up front like they've been at some of the mile and a half, I could see Justin Haley having a solid and good run. We'll see how he ends up doing as he continues to build on for 2025 when he will have Rodney Childress as a crew chief for this seat next year. Up next, how about the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing? This will once again be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch early in the year was really strong at this racetrack, was one of the biggest threats to Kyle Larson for a majority of the event. Yes, like I mentioned with Austin Dillon, there's a lot of spy allegations going on currently at the moment with this team, but Kyle's looking to deter that and have a chance to get the first win of the year. He's been close to winning races in recent weeks. We'll see if Kyle Busch can have that chance and opportunity to maybe get the win this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott has never won a NASCAR Cup Series race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, but he's looking to have a really good run. He's had decent speed on the mile and a half, of course, won at Texas earlier this year, and has also been extremely consistent at those types of tracks throughout the season. He's looking to start the next round very, very strong and looking to maybe get that 2nd win of 2024 this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This will once again be driven by Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson was very impressive early in the year at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, where he legit had top 5 speed and at times was one of the fastest cars on the racetrack and got a top 10 earlier in the year. I think Noah Gragson's going to run pretty well this weekend. He's been good at Las Vegas historically, and I do think he'll have a really strong and a pretty great performance with the 10 team as his team closes out their tenure in the NASCAR Cup Series with this organization. Up next, how about the 11 car for Joie Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin is a former winner at Las Vegas, I believe, back in 2021, and Hamlin's been always pretty quick at this racetrack, especially with JGR showing that pace and speed. I expect Denny Hamlin to be a factor for the win. The mile-and-a-half program is really strong for JGR. I think Denny Hamlin will have a solid chance and maybe a strong opportunity to get win number 4 of 2024 this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 12th car for Team Penske? This will once again be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney has always been good at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It doesn't matter the type of car or track, he's always been good at Las Vegas. I expect him to be a major factor for the win this weekend. I think he'll have top 5 speed and maybe a factor to go up against a guy like Kyle Larson or Tyler Reddick. I think he's going to be fast, and I do think he'll be a major factor and contender maybe to get the victory for sure this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway with the 12 team. Up next, how about the 14 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This will once again be driven by Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe, unfortunately, was eliminated from the playoffs after having a terrible round of 12. And Briscoe, unfortunately, unlike his teammates, was not that fast at Las Vegas early in the season. I don't really expect much from Briscoe. I feel like SHR, at least with the 14 team, they've been falling off as of late. They've got a really cool paint scheme for the weekend, but I'm not sure if that's going to give them the luck that they need. I'm not really sure how Briscoe will unfortunately end up doing with the 14 team this weekend at Las Vegas once again. Up next, how about the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing? This will once again be driven by Cody Ware, who I believe makes his 7th or 8th Cup start of the season. Cody Ware's had some okay performances this year. At times it's been impressive, but really has not set the world on fire. And unfortunately for Cody, I think he's going to be in the back of the pack this weekend because the Rick Ware cars have still been a little bit inconsistent throughout the 2024 season. I don't expect much from Cody Ware. Unfortunately, I do think he ends up struggling and not running well this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 16 car for Colleague Racing? This will once again be driven by Shane Van Gisbergen, who will make his 3rd consecutive NASCAR Cup Series start this weekend. He will also have a new sponsor of Wendy's Spicy Chicken sponsoring him this weekend. SVG had a really good performance at the Charlotte Roll, finishing inside the top 10, and in the previous race, he finished at 15th at Talladega. I think SVG could have an okay performance, but I'm not expecting him to set the world on fire because Colleague's mile-and-a-half program has not been as strong. But we'll see what SVG can do with the number 16 team as he makes another Cup start this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 17 car for RFK Racing? This will once again be driven by Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher's had some decent runs here at Las Vegas in the past, but also has made a lot of mistakes. I believe in the spring, he had some major issues throughout the event. I think Buescher will have an okay run. Like I said, with RFK, they've shown some good pace and speed on the mile-and-a-half throughout this year, but I'm not expecting Buescher to be a major factor for the win. We'll see if he can prove me wrong, and we'll see if Chris Buescher can have a solid and a really strong performance with the 17 team this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 19 car for Joie Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Martin Truex Jr. It's been a terrible year for Martin Truex Jr. Yes, he had a couple good races where he got a top 10, of course, at Talladega, and then, of course, finished inside the top 5 at Kansas Speedway, finishing in 3rd place. However, the 19 team has just made a lot of mistakes, and there's been a lot of pit calls and terrible strategy calls throughout the season, and they did not have a great run at the Charlotte Roll. Unfortunately, I think the year is getting off on a sour note for Martin Truex Jr., and the bad luck will continue until the end of 2024. Up next, how about the 20 car for Joie Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell's been on a roll so far in the 2024 playoffs. I believe he has the best average of all active playoff drivers so far that remain, and Bell has been pretty good at Las Vegas in the past. He's still looking for his first Cup Las Vegas win, but nearly won the South Point 400 last year. Despite the that he's shown, I think he's going to be a major factor. Led a ton of laps, of course, at Kansas earlier this year. I think Bell will be a major factor and contender for the win this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 21 car for the Wood Brothers? This will once again be driven by Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton is trying to end the year off on a really strong note before he goes over the 15 car to replace Haley Deegan next season. I'm not really expecting much from Harrison. He's probably going to run in the back of the pack, unfortunately, because the Wood Brothers has struggled a lot this year. I don't expect much from Harrison. He likely ends up struggling this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Up next, how about the 22 car for Team Penske? This one once again be driven by Joey Logano. Joey Logano had been eliminated from the playoffs, but because of this qualification for Alex Bowman, he is back in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. Logano's looking to start the round off great, and unfortunately, in recent years, he hasn't been as strong at this racetrack, and unfortunately, I don't expect much from Joey Logano this weekend as a major factor. The mile and a half program hasn't been strong, and I think Logano, unfortunately, sadly, ends up struggling more than likely this weekend at the Charlotte Roval. Up next, how about the 23 car for 2311 Racing? This will once again be driven by Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace has actually been solid at Las Vegas, and I believe he finished in the top 5 earlier this year at this racetrack. I think Bubba's going to have a solid car this week, and I think the 23 team has gotten better. Bubba just got his 13th top 10 of the season, had a really solid run at the Roval. The mile and a half program's generally been really good for the 23 team. Actually, had tire issues, but I think Bubba will have a solid car and run pretty good for sure this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by William Byron. William Byron has been extremely consistent in the last couple weeks. Second, third, and third in the round of 12, and I expect that to continue. William Byron's been really good at Las Vegas in the past, won the spring race in 2023. I think William Byron is going to have a solid chance and a very strong opportunity to get win number 4 of 2024 this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 31 car for Colleague Racing? This will once again be driven by Daniel Hemrick. Daniel Hemrick's trying to end year off on a really strong note before he heads over to potentially either the Truck Series next or another organization in 2025. He's looking for a really solid run. I'm not expecting much from Hemrick. Unfortunately, Colleague's been a little hit or miss on their mile and a half program. I think he sadly ends up struggling more than likely, unfortunately, this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Michael McDowell. McDowell, unfortunately, did not have the greatest run at the Charlotte Roval, and the mile and a half program's been okay for McDowell this year, but he hasn't always been good at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I think he ends up struggling a little bit this weekend, not running as quick, and I do think McDowell, unfortunately, ends year off on a not great note and does not run well this weekend, once again, at Las Vegas Motor Speedway with the 34 team. Up next, how about the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Todd Gilliland. Unlike Michael McDowell, Todd Gilliland has been super impressive this season. He's been in the top 25 most of the year, and at points has been inside the top 20 in the regular season standings. I'm expecting 2025 to be a really good year despite the lawsuit going on between Front Row and NASCAR. I think Todd Gilliland is going to run well next year, and I think he could have a solid and a decent chance for a good run for sure this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway with the 38. Up next, how about the 41 car for Stewart-Haas Racing? This will once again be driven by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece has not had the greatest year so far in 2024, though I will say a couple races in the playoffs, he actually has looked pretty solid. But unfortunately for Preece, I'm not expecting much. He's probably going to run outside the top 20, unfortunately, this weekend and not have the pace to contend. Maybe proves me wrong and runs well, but like I said, I'm not expecting much from Preece. I think he sadly ends up not having the greatest run in the 41 car this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Up next, how about the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club? This will once again be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. Nemechek is a former winner here in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. In fact, he won the spring race earlier this year at Las Vegas for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. But I think that Nemechek won't have the best run. Now, Legacy's shown some decent pace, but Nemechek struggled this year. And he's just looking to year off on a really strong note and get some momentum for 2025, though I'm not exactly sure if he's going to have that momentum going into the 2025 season. Up next, how about the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club? This will once again be driven by Eric Jones. Eric Jones has been okay at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in the NASCAR Cup Series in the past, but he hasn't been great here in the Cup Series. I do think he'll actually run okay. He'll have some good runs this weekend, I think with Legacy and the changes, maybe he can run better, but it's been a struggle year for the Legacy Motor Club organization this year. I'm unfortunately not expecting him to set the world on fire. Hopefully he can prove me wrong, but we'll see if he can have a solid and good run this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway with the 43. Up next, how about the 45 car for 2311 Racing? This will once again be driven by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick nearly won the spring race earlier this year and was running down Kyle Larson on the long run. Unfortunately, just ran out of time. Reddick's looking for a turnaround. It's been a very bad playoff so far in 2024, and he's looking to end the year off on a great note and make the championship four and maybe contend for a championship. This is a good track for him, though. He looks to get his first ever NASCAR Cup Series win at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, as he's been close in the past and many times before. Up next, how about the 47 car for JTG Doherty Racing? This will once again be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., of course, won a couple weekends ago at Talladega Superspeedway, though unfortunately for Stenhouse, he didn't run that fantastic earlier this year at Las Vegas. He had good speed earlier, last year I should say, but didn't have the speed this year, and I'm not sure he's going to have that speed. Maybe he could prove me wrong and have a great run, but I don't expect much, unfortunately, for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Alex Bowman. Unfortunately, Alex Bowman, after being disqualified at the Charlotte Roval, has sadly been eliminated, and they will not be appealing the disqualification. Bowman's looking for justification. He won this race in 2022 in the spring and is looking for a really great run this weekend to kind of get the fans cheered up. I think he's going to have a chance and opportunity. The speed has been there and the pace has been there. We'll see if Alex Bowman can have a chance and opportunity to get win number 2 of 2024 this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing? This will once again be driven by Corey LaJoie. Like I mentioned earlier, Corey LaJoie almost had a shot to win at one point in the race in the spring, but unfortunately faded back. He's just looking to end the year off on a really good note, and unfortunately the first few races for him really have not been off to the bestest of starts. He is looking for a good run this weekend. I'm not sure if he's going to have the speed to contend. Maybe he can. Haley had good runs with this team, so we'll see if Corey LaJoie can have a solid and good end to 2024 this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Up next, how about the 54 car for Joie Gibbs Racing? This will once again be driven by Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs had a lot of transmission issues as of recently, and he's just looking to end the year on a great note as well. He's passed some speed this year, and showed speed earlier this year at Las Vegas where he had top 5 and top 10 speed. I think that Ty Gibbs could be a contender if they could bring the speed they had at Kansas, but we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens. He's still looking for that first career Cup Series win. I think he's going to have a chance and opportunity to do that if they could bring the pace this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about a 71 car for Spire Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Zane Smith. Zane Smith has been really impressive in the second half of this year, and since the playoffs started, he has had the 7th best average finish of all drivers this year with the 15th place. He's gotten better second half of the year. He is still looking for a ride going into 2025, but more than likely he is going to end up at front row, though it's not been officially confirmed. It's expected to be announced soon that he'll be at front row in 2025. Up next, how about a 77 car for Spire Motorsports? This will once again be driven by Carson Hocevar. While Carson Hocevar was weighing over his head at the race of the Roval, he's actually shown some good speed at these types of tracks, and he had speed at Kansas a couple weekends ago. I think Carson could be a factor for a top 10 potentially. Spire's been getting faster, and they're getting more technical support more than likely going into 2025. Also, most likely having a 4th part-time entry next year at some point as well. We'll see how he ends up doing, and we'll see what Carson can do, but I think we'll have speed to be a contender this weekend at Las Vegas. Up next, how about the 84 car for Legacy Motor Club? This will once again be driven by Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson is just looking for an incident-free race. Seems like every single week so far this year that he's raced, he's been involved in an incident really not of his causing. He's looking to finish at this point. He did finish at Kansas, but got caught up in a wreck. It's just like watching drivers have gone and retired and come back, like a Matt Kenseth at one point, or maybe Carl Edwards, Kurt Busch, for example. But I'm not expecting Jimmy Johnson to run great, unfortunately. I think he gets caught up more than likely in an incident just because Jimmy Johnson has been unlucky this year. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Daniel Suarez. Unfortunately, Daniel Suarez's playoff run came to an end with a very lackadaisical run at the Charlotte Roval. And Suarez has been okay at Vegas, showed some speed a couple years ago, but hasn't really set the world on fire on these types of tracks this year. He looks for a really good way to end the year. He's got one more year on his contract with Trackhouse going into 2025. He needs to start proving what he can do. Otherwise, he could lose his seat potentially going into the 2026 season. So that is going to be it for the entry list for the 2024 South Point 400 at Las Vegas. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support on Patreon as well. List description below that, and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. What are your thoughts about the entry list video? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In about an hour or so, you're going to see a Haley Deegan video, as she, of course, will be leaving to go to IndyCar next year in the NXT. You're going to see a NASCAR news video talking about all the news from this week. We've got a lot to talk about, and you'll see the Xfinity Series race picks for the weekend for the And Better Health 200. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.